Prophecy, the message. We've looked at prophecy in the Bible and what the Bible is, and we've looked at prophecy, the prophet, and now we're going to look at prophecy, the message. Yes, and I'm going to just give you little snippets from the Bible. There's way more I could say, but too much information and too little time. So let's look at a few of God's prophets. Remember, from the message from the prophet, prophets are chosen of God. Yes, in our day, as we're filled with the Spirit now, we can prophesy. But giving a word out doesn't necessarily make you a prophet, does it? No. A prophet is called of God. A position, a respected position, and only by God's choosing. But those who are filled with the Spirit can give a message of prophecy. I just want to be clear about that. So let's look at King David. Have you read the Psalms? Were you able to see any prophecy in them? Sometimes we don't, because we're very carefully looking for something to bless us and make us feel better. But David spoke many prophecies in his Psalms, and they will come true in the future. That's my next video. Isaiah the prophet. Yes, Isaiah the prophet. He's the one that gave the Emmanuel prophecy. A virgin shall conceive and bear a son. And other prophecies about him, that this Messiah would govern and rule and so forth. And the Lord came to Isaiah, it says, go and tell this people. See, God shows up to the prophets of old. He stands in their presence. They physically hear him or see him. And the message he was given was to the people was to keep on hearing, but you won't understand. That's the message he was given to Israel. You won't understand the messianic prophecy, but the people were to hear it whether they understood it or not. Interesting, huh? And then we have Jeremiah the prophet. And the voice of the Lord came to Jeremiah. God himself, in a theophany form, showed up in a voice to Jeremiah. And to Jeremiah he says, Jeremiah, warn Jerusalem and say, O Jerusalem, wash your heart. And many other things. They weren't going to understand, but he's to give it to them anyway. Isaiah. And Jeremiah was told, God says to him, I have put my words in your mouth. Wow. Warnings, judgments, direction, the messages are different. And to Ezekiel, the prophet, the word of the Lord came to him in a voice and showed him visions. So the voice of God, a manifestation of God a voice of God, just this voice. He heard him in his ear. And the visions came before him. And the message, his first message to Israel was, the glory of God is going to depart. The glory of God that rested on the mercy seat was going to depart. And he was to tell Israel that due to your sin, the glory, the presence of God will depart. Whoa, that's a hard word, huh? And then Ezekiel's told by God in these visions, he sees pictures of what's coming. The regathering of the whole house of Israel, actually the first gathering of Israel from all across the planet. And then the word of the Lord said is, I will gather them. Yep. And the end of Ezekiel's prophetic book, he talks about God's temple that will be built here on earth. Yes, here on earth. All these amazing prophecies for us to read and understand what God's up to. He gave to these special men of old. And we can't leave Daniel out either, can we? Daniel was given visions. An angel came to him, and his vision was to show Daniel and us the time of Messiah's coming and the time of Messiah's death. Very important message he was given. Amazingly so. Before I go on, I'd like to say that there's a difference between Old Testament prophets, all but one, and New Testament prophets. Remember, we can have a word of prophecy. God can speak to us, but he speaks in our spirit. He's not visibly present in his voice and standing before people or in a flame of fire or what one of his ways he came. In the New Testament, it's quite different. Prophets were called. Their message was what? It was a different message almost. It was declaring that the Lord came into the flesh as a virgin. He died, was resurrected once again, and will come again. That's the prophetic message throughout the New Testament. And they were differently spoken to these men than the time before in the Old Testament, when God was present with them. Times change, and there's a time for that. And the Spirit now is poured out on those that will. And I cannot leave out one more, even though there's many, many, many prophets in the Bible. Many, many, many prophets. But the disciple John, the youngest disciple, while he was imprisoned on the Isle of Patmos, was given amazing visions for the future, for our future. Not only his future, but our future. And this time it was written down before the oracles of God were spoken to the people of Israel, and others wrote them down. And now John has them written down, and he's telling many things that were new and unbelievable, and still are. The things that God's going to do. The Messiah is coming back. There's going to be trouble for Israel. There's going to be redemption for the believers on this earth. There's redemption for the Jewish nation and judgment for the unbelievers. Amazing, amazing book full of prophetic visions given by God to John to benefit us so that we can learn. And we must learn. We must understand the things of God in order to know God. He gave them for our benefit. We don't want to turn our ear away from them because we need them. He's teaching us, showing us. God's messenger, God's message is not just for the messenger and the people he spoke to, but to all of us. The message Daniel spoke, the message Ezekiel spoke, and all of them is to teach us today. And they've come true. The messianic prophecies about the virgin that will bear a son, and his name will be called Emmanuel. All those prophecies have come to be, and we can test them, the others that haven't, that they will come to be just as the ones previously have come to be. The future is sure with God's people when they study the scriptures.